He said I was too ugly to be loved. So I made his friends watch the real DMs. When I first met Alex, I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was focused on my job, finishing my certification program, and trying to unlearn years of being told I wasn't pretty enough for love. He was charming in a way that made it hard to look away. Confident, outgoing. The kind of guy who walks into a room and seems to suck all the air out of it, in a good way. People gravitated toward him. I was surprised when he gravitated toward me. You have this quiet magnetism, he said the second time we hung out. Like, you're not screaming for attention, and that's hot. That should have been my first red flag. But I was too caught up in the idea that someone like him could like someone like me. He never said I was beautiful, not exactly. It was always something like, you look different. Or, I like that you're not trying to be someone you're not. At the time, I took it as a compliment. He made it seem like I was the exception to a rule, that most women were fake, obsessed with validation, too polished, and that I was a breath of fresh air, natural, real. But over time, that compliment became a cage. 6 months into our relationship, I noticed he rarely posted pictures of us together. When I asked why, he laughed and said, I don't need to prove anything to the world. I like keeping things private. But he didn't keep anything else private. He posted gym selfies, brunch with the guys, his dog, his car, everything but me. One of his friends once jokingly said, Man, you're hiding her like she's your little... Alex smiled and said, Nah, she's just not really into social... I laughed along. I played along. Because the alternative meant admitting I felt invisible. At parties, he would introduce me as Laura, my girl, then drift away to talk to people. Sometimes I'd catch people giving me curious glances, like they were trying to figure out how I ended up with someone like him. I'd hear whispers, she's sweet, I guess, or he usually dates mom. I started wearing more makeup, dressing up more, posting my own photos. He noticed, of course. Trying to impress someone? He asked once, raising an eyebrow. No, I said. Just felt like putting in effort. He smiled. You don't need all that. Honestly, I like you better without it. The whole world's full of filters. I don't want to. It sounded romantic. It wasn't. The cracks got bigger. He'd comment on random women's posts, but never liked mine. He'd compliment strangers in front of me, but rarely said anything nice about how I looked. When I mentioned it, he brushed it off. You're too sensitive, babe. You know I love you. That should be enough. So I believed him. I really did. Even when he made jokes about how I wasn't the taste, or how I should be grateful, I didn't have to deal with constant attention from guys. He said it with a laugh, but there was always an edge to it. And I stayed, because I thought this was just how it was when someone settled for someone like me. That night, everything changed. It was his best friend's birthday party, and they'd rented out the rooftop of a hotel downtown. Everyone was dressed to impress. I wore a dress I hadn't dared to wear before. Sleek, black, elegant. I'd gotten my hair done, wore heels that made my ankles ache, and for once I felt proud. I walked in, and a couple of guys I didn't know turned to look. I heard one of them say, Damn, who's that? Alex noticed. He walked over and wrapped an arm around my waist like he was claiming territory. I smiled up at him, not thinking anything of it. But as the night wore on and drinks kept coming, I saw a version of him I hadn't seen before. Louder, meaner, looser with his tongue. We were sitting with his friends, maybe 5 or 6 of them, all a little drunk and joking around. One of them brought up a girl who had catfished him using fake pictures. Everyone laughed. Then someone turned to Alex and said, Bro, at least your girl's real. We've seen many fakes lately. And Alex, wish I'd left right then. Alex took a sip of his drink, grinned, and said, Yeah, real all right. I mean, let's be honest. No one's chasing Laura. That's why I'm with her. She's sweet. It's safe. Everything around me blurred. There was laughter, nervous, confused. A couple of the guys looked shocked. One tried to cover it with a joke. Dude, that's harsh. But he just smirked. Come on, you all know what I mean. I didn't say a word. I stood up, picked up my clutch, and walked away. He didn't follow. Not immediately. Not until 15 minutes later when he realized I'd actually left the building. I was already halfway down the block when I heard him calling after me. Babe! Babe, come on, it was a joke! But I didn't turn back. Not that night. Not ever again in the same way. Because the moment he said those words out loud in front of his friends, affirmed something I'd always feared. He never saw me as enough. I was his safety net. His placeholder. The girl who would never leave because she didn't think she could. He was wrong. I got home, took off my heels, and stared at myself in the mirror. My makeup was perfect. My dress looked great. My eyes were red. I'd cried without noticing. And then something inside me snapped, but not in a weak way. It was quiet, cold, focused. If he thought I was so unlovable, so safe, because I wasn't being chased, then it was time to show him just how wrong he was. I didn't cry the next morning. I didn't call him. Didn't text. Didn't even block him. I just let him sit in silence, wondering what kind of storm he'd created. While he stewed in confusion, I got to work. It started with a walk through memory lane, my inboxes, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, even LinkedIn. I scrolled through messages I hadn't thought about in months, years. Messages I'd once ignored out of loyalty. From guys who saw something in me that Alex never did. Some were respectful, some were flirty, some were downright bold, and some were from his own friends. That's what made my fingers go still over the keyboard. I blinked at the screen. It was from his friend Caleb, the one who'd laughed awkwardly after Alex called me safe. His message was from 8 months ago. Hey, don't take this the wrong way, but if you're ever tired of being treated like wallpaper, let me know. I see you. I never answered. I'd thought it was inappropriate. At the time, I showed it to Alex. He laughed. See? That's why I don't trust guys around you. Then blocked phone and changed my passwords, just in case. I had brushed it off believing he was just being protective, but now it hit me differently. It wasn't protection. It was possession. I dug deeper. Over 100 messages, likes, emojis, voice notes, random old classmates, gym trainers, even a guy I met once at a seminar who remembered my presentation, all praising me, all expressing admiration, all messages Alex had called irrelevant or fake attention. He'd seen them all. He knew about them. And that's exactly why he tried to suffocate any confidence I had left. He wasn't blind to what other men saw. He just needed me to stay blind. I archived everything. Screenshots, dates, profiles. I even managed to recover a few deleted messages from my backup cloud account, ones that had been removed when we still shared passwords. One stood out. It was from a photographer we'd met at a wedding. He had messaged me privately, saying he wanted to collaborate and thought I had underrated energy. I'd never even seen that message before. Alex must have deleted it before I got the notification. I started building a timeline, a quiet, relentless map of every moment he tried to erase my worth. I didn't do it for revenge, not at first. I did it for clarity. I needed to see it laid out. To know I wasn't crazy, that what he did was real. 2 days passed, then 3. On the 4th morning, he showed up at my place. I didn't answer the door, just watched him through the peephole as he knocked and knocked, then finally muttered, "You're seriously blowing this out of proportion," before walking away. That night, he posted a quote on his Instagram story. "Some people can't take a joke. Some people never loved you like you loved them." I laughed. Loved me? He never loved me. He contained me. He tried calling, left a voicemail with a half-hearted apology. I was drunk. You know how guys are. I was just trying to be funny. He didn't know what I knew, what I was gathering, what I was planning. The truth was, I wasn't sure what I was building yet, but something had shifted in me. A calm, calculated awareness. The kind of energy I imagined lawyers had when they knew they were about to win a case. It wasn't until the weekend that the idea took shape. A mutual friend of ours, Jess, messaged me and said, "Hey, I don't want to get involved, but I heard what he said at the party." I was shocked. "Are you okay?" I told her I was fine. Then I asked her, "If you heard him say that about any other girl, what would you do?" She replied, "Honestly, I'd put his ego on trial." That's when it clicked. I wasn't going to just walk away. I was going to put him on trial, in front of his own jury, crafting the presentation. At first, it was just a folder on my desktop called Proof. Then it turned into a PowerPoint. Nothing flashy. Just plain text, message screenshots, timestamps, usernames, even short screen recordings of me scrolling through real-time DMs. I added everything. DMs from the men who complimented me. DMs from his friends. Deleted messages he'd hidden. Voice notes of him mocking other women. Because yes, he didn't just demean me. He once laughed about his coworker's weight and called another girl a charity case behind her back. And then, I saved the pièce de résistance, an audio clip I didn't know I had. From the party. Apparently, my phone had started recording in my purse when I accidentally hit the voice memo button as I was walking to the rooftop. Crystal clear audio. His voice. His words. The laughter. The silence that followed. I had it all. I renamed that file 2ugly.mp3. By the end of the week, I had nearly 60 slides and enough digital evidence to put a narcissist in a chokehold. But I wasn't done. I wanted them to see what they let slide. So I planned a casual get-together. A friend of a friend worked at a co-working loft space with a projector wall. I asked if I could rent it for a digital art showcase. She didn't ask too many questions. I invited every one of Alex's friends, his roommates, his colleagues, even Caleb. I told them I had something I needed to show, and then I sent a single text to Alex. Be there. No excuses. It's about us, he replied. Glad you're finally ready to talk. I'll bring drinks. I smiled. No, Alex. This time, you'll bring the silence. The day of the showcase, I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel excited either. It was something else. Calm, cold, exact. Like my emotions had packed themselves away in a box and left logic in charge. The version of me that cried in the mirror was gone. This version was steel. The room wasn't large, but it had clean white walls, rows of chairs, soft lighting, and the projector already set up when I arrived. My friend Dana, who worked the venue, gave me a cautious look. Still sure you want to do this? I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything. People trickled in. Caleb was one of the first. He looked surprised to see me, but he hugged me gently. If this is about what happened I just want you to know I didn't laugh. I was disgusted. I nodded. You'll want to. Soon the room filled with a strange mix of tension and confusion. Everyone thought they were walking into a quirky art piece or maybe a weird breakup talk. I kept it vague on purpose. Let them feel uncertain. Let them squirm. Finally, Alex walked in. Late, of course, carrying a bottle of wine and grinning like he was about to charm his way out of whatever awkwardness he expected. Wow, he said, looking around. Didn't know you were going full TED Talk. I didn't answer. I just walked to the front, clicked the remote, and the first... This is what he thought. People shifted in their seats. Alex froze behind me. I heard someone mutter, "Wait, this." I clicked again. Slide 2. A screenshot of the DM from Caleb. The one about being treated like wallpaper. The date. The time. My lack of reply. Gasps. Caleb leaned forward, staring. Wait, you saw that? I nodded once. Things. Slide 3. Messages from 3 of Alex's friends. Compliments, suggesting I deserved better. All of them dated during the relationship. None of them responded to my polite declines, except one who added, "You could do better than that, clown." I kept clicking. Message after message. Dozens. Some romantic, some respectful, some embarrassingly explicit. All from real accounts. All real-time stamps. Alex's face turned a slow, ugly shade of red. Okay, what the hell is this? He finally snapped. You're seriously airing out your DMS to what? Make me jealous? I turned to him, face blank. Number? I'm showing everyone what you tried to erase. I clicked again. Slide 24. A screen recording of the deleted folder. Hundreds of messages he had removed from my inbox without permission. DMS from men I'd never had a chance to read. One of them, from a photographer we met at a wedding, included a screenshot of a message he sent to Alex, asking for permission to offer me a modeling campaign for a local brand. I thought she'd be great for our Real Beauty campaign. Would love to collab. Alex had replied, "She's not into that stuff. She's shy." He never told me. He just blocked him. Gasps echoed around the room again. Someone whispered, "Wait." Then came slide 35, a video clip from a voice memo. I hit play. Alex's voice boomed across the room, distorted slightly from the muffled purse recording, but clear enough. Let's be honest. No one's chasing Laura. That's why I'm with her. She's too ugly to cheat. It's safe. A stunned silence fell. The air thickened. I paused the clip and looked directly at him. That's your voice. And you laughed. In front of your friends. After I spent 2 years of my life defending you. Choosing you over me every single time. His expression twisted. Laura, I was drunk. I told you. You were honest, I interrupted. Drunk minds speak sober truths. Isn't that what you said about my friend Jess when she cried at her birthday party? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I clicked to the next slide. Slide 41. Texts between him and his friends where they made fun of me. One friend joked that I looked like someone's before photo. Alex responded, more like the never photo. The room recoiled. I turned to the crowd. For 2 years, I was told I was real, natural, not like other girls. I thought it was. It wasn't. It was cruelty dressed up as praise. It was control. Insecurity in disguise. I turned to Alex again. I wasn't too ugly to be loved. You were too insecure to love someone who didn't worship. His friends looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. And then, for the final slide, I clicked to a black screen with white. To every woman who's ever been told she's lucky just to be chosen, you don't need to be chosen by. The room erupted, not with cheers. With stunned, stinging silence, one guy muttered, "Jesus Christ." Another stood up and walked out. Two of Alex's friends didn't say anything. They just stared at him like they'd never seen him before. Alex looked around like a man drowning. "You seriously invited all my friends to hum—" "No," I said. "You did that yourself." I just turned. And then I walked out. No tears. No screaming. Just the clicking of my heels against the hardwood floor and the knowledge that he would never come back from this. I didn't go back for my things. I didn't answer his calls, didn't read the essays he sent to my email, titled things like, "Please read this," "Closure," and my personal favorite, "The truth of—" There was no truth he could give me that I hadn't already found for myself. For 2 weeks, he spiraled. One of his friends DM'd me and said, he hasn't been to work. He deleted all his socials. People are like everywhere. I didn't respond. Caleb reached out too, not to apologize for his message, but to thank me. Not just for calling him out, he wrote, but for waking the rest of us up. I should have said something that night. I was a coward. I didn't blame him. Cowards protect each other, until someone flips the light on. The group of guys who used to laugh with Alex stopped talking to him altogether. At least 4 of them unfollowed him publicly, and one even reshared the audio clip with a caption that simply said, "Not her." Of course, he blamed me. He sent me one last voice note. I never listened to it, but I saw the preview text. "You ruined my life. Hope you're proud." I am. But that wasn't the point. I didn't set out to ruin anything. I set out to reclaim something. My voice, my image, my story. The part of me that I'd handed over to someone too weak to carry it with care. People think heartbreak is loud. It's not. It's a slow, skin-peeling silence. It's standing in the mirror and not recognizing your own reflection. And it's trying to convince yourself that maybe, just maybe, if you change just a little more, they'd finally love you back. I'd spent 2 years trimming pieces of myself to fit into Alex's version of enough. No more. I moved in with my cousin across the city while I found my own place. I got rid of every photo, every gift, every piece of clothing he'd ever commented on with a backhanded compliment. I deleted our shared Spotify playlists. I cleared out the saved Instagram drafts of couple photos I never got to post. I started over, not as a revenge story, but as a rebuild. That winter, I enrolled in a part-time mentorship program for women struggling with confidence after emotionally abusive relationships. I'd once read a line that said, "The healed version of you becomes someone else's survival guide." So I became that. At first, I just listened, sat in circles and nodded as women described boyfriends who never said, "I love you," without a caveat. Partners who praised their naturalness but drooled over influencers online. Men who claimed to want real women but really just wanted someone who wouldn't make them feel small. One day, I shared my story. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. But when I described the party, the quote, the slideshow, one of the girls burst out laughing. Not because it was funny, but because it was liberating. "God," she said, "I wish I had thought of that. You gave main character energy to who thought she was a footnote." That stuck with me. I was a footnote once, in my own life. Now, I was the damn title. Months passed. Spring rolled in. My skin cleared up. I started sleeping better. My texts weren't filled with checking in on someone else's feelings at the expense of my own. I began to take more photos of myself, not for validation, but for remembrance. Proof that I existed, fully, proudly, unapologetically. Then one day, I received a package at the front desk of my new building. No return address. Inside, a soft black notebook and a folded photo of Alex and me from our first vacation. I hadn't even remembered taking it. On the last page of the notebook, written in his handwriting, "I still see you when I close my eyes. You were too much, and I hope one day someone's man enough to deserve that." I laughed. That wasn't an apology. That was a eulogy for his own failure. And I wasn't mourning it anymore. I tossed the photo in the trash. But I kept the notebook. Not because it meant something, but because it no longer did. About 2 weeks later, I was at a small networking event for women in business. I'd just started my own small styling service, helping other women find outfits that made them feel powerful, not what their boyfriends or mothers or Instagram wanted from them. A woman approached me with tears in her eyes. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "You're Laura, right?" she asked. I nodded, cautious. She smiled. "You don't know me, but you helped my sister." She was in that support group you led in March. She was in such a dark place. She stopped eating. She wouldn't even look in mirrors anymore. But after hearing your story, she signed up for college again. She bought red lipstick. She's living again. My throat closed. She squeezed my hand. You probably thought you were just surviving something, but you were saving people too. That night, I cried for the first time in months. Not out of pain, out of gratitude. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't humiliation. It isn't exposing a man for what he is. It's becoming a version of yourself so grounded, so whole, so luminous, that he becomes irrelevant. I wasn't too ugly to be loved. I was too bright to be dimmed. And finally, I knew that. A year passed. Not like a clean break. It was messy. There were moments where I'd wake up from dreams where he was apologizing, and for a split second I'd wonder if I made everything up. Trauma does that. It softens the abuser in your memory, paints them with just enough warmth to confuse you. But then I'd scroll past an old message or see a photo I hadn't deleted yet, and it would all come back sharp and raw. But the pain never stayed long anymore. I started seeing someone new in the spring. Not seriously, not at first. His name was Evan. We met at a volunteer event where I'd been styling women for job interviews. He offered to help carry the donation boxes to my car, then stayed for almost an hour, asking questions about what I did and how I got into it. What struck me most wasn't that he complimented my work. It was that he listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't try to compare it to his own life. He didn't make any sly jokes about helping ugly girls feel pretty or other passive digs I used to think were normal. Evan just listened. We took it slow. I told him early on that I'd gotten out of a toxic relationship and that I wasn't looking to be saved or praised. He nodded and said, "Cool. I'm just here to know you, not fix you." I almost cried right there in the cafe. He never once made me feel like my past was baggage, and he never tried to compete with it. I kept waiting for a moment when he'd slip up, say something cruel, make some offhand comment about how I looked or dressed or smiled, but it never came. Once I asked him why he never complimented my appearance the way most guys do. He blinked and said, "Because you know you're beautiful, right?" And just like that, I realized I did. Not because Evan told me, but because I'd finally learned to say it to myself. We never talked about Alex. I never brought it up, and Evan never asked. But one night, while we were lying on my living room floor after watching a terrible movie, Evan said something that, "I don't know who hurt you," he said, "but I'm glad they did." I sat up slowly. "Excuse me?" He held his hands up. "I don't mean that the way it sounds. I just mean, whoever didn't see your worth? Whoever convinced you that you were hard to love, they created a version of you that's strong one I've ever met. That's the version I get. And I think they'd hate that." I stared at him for a long time, and then I kissed him. Not because I was falling in love, but because for the first time in a long time I felt chosen, without being someone's second choice. Around the same time, one of Alex's old friends, Tyler. We hadn't spoken since the party, but his message was short and unexpected. "Hey, just want... You were right about him. I see it now. Thanks for opening our eyes." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The fallout had already happened. Alex's reputation never quite recovered. He didn't lose everything, but he lost the illusion. People looked at him differently now. Not because of what I said, but because they finally heard his own words. He moved to another city a few months after the slideshow. I heard he tried to start fresh. New job, new crowd. But the internet doesn't forget. At least 2 people reposted the audio clip with threads about emotional manipulation, and his name kept popping up on niche forums about dating red flags. I didn't post about him. I didn't name drop. I didn't need to. He wanted silence after being exposed. He got it. As for me, I poured everything I had into my work. My small business grew. Word spread that I wasn't just a stylist. I was a confidence coach. Women came to me not just for clothes, but for courage. I taught them how to dress for themselves, how to say no, how to walk away from people who made them feel like love was something they had to earn. I hosted workshops, partnered with women's centers, and one day, completely by chance, ended up giving a short talk at a local college where I'd once sat in the back row terrified to raise my hand. Full circle. One of the girls in the front row asked me during the Q&A, "Have you ever wanted to get revenge on someone who hurt you?" I paused, smiled. I did once. I thought the only way to reclaim my power was to make them feel what I felt. A few heads nodded in agreement. "But now," I continued, "now I know the real revenge is living a life so free, so unapologetically yours, that they have to sit with the version of you they tried to break." She smiled. Another girl wiped a tear. I felt the words settle in the room like ash after a fire. Later that night, I went home, kicked off my shoes, and opened my laptop. A new message had come through my website's contact form. It was from a girl named Maddie, 17. She'd been in a controlling relationship for almost a year and finally left after finding one of my videos online. She said it gave her the courage to tell her mom the truth. Ended her message with, "You don't know me, but you saved me. Thank you for existing." And that's when I knew this wasn't just my story anymore. This was hers, and every girl before her, and every girl who comes next. I never planned to become anyone's role model. In fact, if you told the version of me from 2 years ago, the girl who stood quietly beside a man who humiliated her in front of his friends, that one day she'd be standing in front of rooms full of women telling them they were worth something, she would have laughed, or cried, or both. But life has a strange way of giving you back everything you lost, just not in the way you expected. A few months after Maddie's message, I received an invitation to speak at a women's summit. It was a modest event, mostly local businesses and nonprofits, but it was a step, a big one. They wanted me to lead a session on reclaiming self-worth after emotional abuse. The title felt heavy, accurate, but heavy. I practiced my talk in front of the mirror, in my car, while brushing my teeth. I rehearsed the moment I'd share the story, the quote, the slideshow. I kept asking myself, does it sound like revenge or survival? And every time, the answer became clearer. It sounded like freedom. The night before the event, I got an unexpected, no subject line, no name in the signature, but I knew who it was. The message was short. I heard what you've been doing. The talks, the workshops. I never thought you'd really go through with that night, but you did. And I know now, I didn't break you. I made you undeniable. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for a long time. I wasn't angry. I wasn't satisfied either, because it didn't matter. His apology came too late to matter. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because by the time he realized I'd become stronger, I no longer needed him to see it. That's the thing no one tells you about healing. It's not about proving you were hurt. It's about no longer needing validation for your pain. I didn't reply. The next morning, I stood on stage in front of nearly 100 women. Some of them young, some of them with gray in their hair. Some wore designer blazers. Some wore old sweaters with tired eyes. All of them had lived. I looked at them and saw parts of myself in every face. I told my story, not with shame, not with drama, just the truth. I told them about the words, too ugly to cheat, and how they nearly gutted me. I told them about the screenshots, the silence, the moment when I decided I wasn't going to cry anymore. I was going to show him who he underestimated. And then I told them what happened after. Not just what he lost, but what I found. I told them about the women I'd met, the ones who thought they had to beg for crumbs and didn't realize they were meant for full plates. I told them about the girl who wore red lipstick for the first time in years, the sister who emailed me to say thank you, the teenager who said my voice helped her find her own. And when I was done, I didn't expect applause. But they stood, all of them, not like I was a performer, but like they saw themselves in me, and knew now they could stand too. Later, as the crowd cleared, a woman approached me, maybe in her 60s, soft curls, tired hands. She looked like someone's favorite grandma. She smiled and said, "I spent 35 years thinking I was too ugly to be loved. Then I left him when I turned 60. You reminded me that it's never too late to stop believing a lie." I swallowed hard and hugged her. She held on longer than I expected. Sometimes the people who need your voice the most are the ones who've been silent the longest. That night, I walked home instead of calling a car. The city lights were soft, the breeze warm. I passed a couple holding hands and didn't flinch. I passed a group of girls laughing too loudly and smiled instead of shrinking. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to earn my space. I already had it. At home on my balcony, legs curled under me, sipping tea. My phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from a stranger on social media. "I just got out of a toxic relationship. I don't know who I am yet. But I read your story and now I believe I can find out." I replied, "You already are. You're more than enough. And anyone who ever told you otherwise was afraid of your light." And I meant every word. That night in bed, I looked at myself in the mirror. No makeup, hair messy, eyes tired, and I whispered, "You're beautiful." Not because anyone else, because I did. And after everything I survived, after every name, every dismissal, every time someone tried to shrink me, that voice in the mirror was the only one that ever really mattered.